Hello everyone, this is the finale of What If Naruto Fell in Love with Kurenai, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. The Raikage stood in the command tent that he, Orochimaru, and the Tsuchikage all set up with their combined forces along with the acting leader of the Suna forces, a Junin named Tenno. The Raikage asked, "So how exactly do we do this?" Before they could say anything, four bold members appeared and said, "Sir, we have the intel you requested." The Raikage said, "Proceed." The bold member said, "As of now it appears the Leaf knows about our approach as they are setting up traps, however it looks like Orochimaru was wrong about the numbers the previous attack did to them. I was able to sneak into the village and the guards at the gate are only Genins. There are around 20 Junins, 120 Chunins and around 100 Genin and Academy students. Civilians are setting up bamboo traps, but they obviously don't know what they are doing because they are putting them going both ways where anyone could walk either way to get across. They also dammed up the river and filled it with trees they cut down to make it like a barricade, but a simple chakra jump would get over it. I also learned the acting leader of the village is the one they call Namikaze, and I found out that the village actually hates him and blames him for the death of the Sandaime." Each of the men were shocked and asked, "How can you be sure the info is accurate?" The bold member said, "It was the girl Orochimaru sent to spy on the village. She gave me all the codes Orochimaru gave her, and she also told me the only reason they are listening to him since H is only 15 is because he killed the council and the clan heads when he took over after they tried to kill him. Apparently H is a Jinchuriki and finally snapped like Gaara from Suna." Each of them got a wide smile on their face, and Orochimaru said, "Are you sure about the numbers? I mean, could they be hiding?" The bold member said, "No sir, I checked everywhere for him. The villagers are afraid of the boy. When he went to kill the clan heads and the council, he took out most of their forces that had not been killed previously. He seems to be the only one we actually have to be afraid of." The Tsuchikage started to laugh and said, "That fool, does he even realize he is making it easier for us?" Orochimaru said, "I don't know, something doesn't seem right." Tenno said, "I don't know Orochimaru. I remember how Gaara was after he first snapped. Before his father calmed him down, he killed a fifth of our village. It's possible H is the same." Orochimaru saw the other leaders were all looking at him and he said, "Very well, I agree we should wipe them out once and for all while they are weak. So how should we do this?" Tenno said, "I think we should send in all our forces at once and kill them all." The Raikage said, "No, that is foolish. Even if the info is completely correct, it would be stupid to send our forces in one wave where they won't be able to move, worrying about running over each other." The Tsuchikage said, "I think we should send in all Chunin in one wave to ensure this is not some trap. Then after they get in the village we send in our Junin in case of a counterattack, and finally send our Genin to help with mop up and gathering the spoils of war." Orochimaru said, "I don't care how we do as long as every one of them is." The Tsuchikage said, "I want the head of Namikaze. My village wants revenge for what his father did to us." The Raikage said, "My village wants revenge for them for foiling our plan to kill Hyuga." Tenno said, "My men just want revenge for all our ninja and the Kazekage." Orochimaru asked, "I am curious, how is it that you still had so many forces when we attacked? I could have sworn that nearly all your forces were in the first attack." Tenno said, "We were part of a secret outpost on the border of Suna and Lightning. By the time news reached us, the Suna forces had already left. The number who made it back have either been hospitalized for injuries or are with us now." Orochimaru frowned and asked, "Are there any other outpost of Suna left?" Tenno said, "No, we were mostly an observation outpost should Iwa or Kumo decide to attack us. Since we were allied with Konoha before, we never built one to watch them, and your village is too new to have had time to build one." Each of the cages nodded and the Raikage said, "What are your feelings for the Leaf now?" Tenno said, "My brother is in the attack, Baki, I will avenge him." Orochimaru said, "Ah yes, the Junin sensei of the Kazekage children." Tenno said, "Yes. Now if you don't mind, I want to discuss that any more until I have the blood of my brother's cur on my hands." The Raikage said, "Oh, of course, let's get back to discussing our plans." Tenno thought, "Those fools shall less." The next day when the forces of Suna, Iwa, Sound, and Kumo arrived at the village, they saw that there were bamboo traps going both ways and they saw civilians running back toward the village scarred. Naruto appeared on the village walls and said, "Listen to me, Konoha. All civilians are to head for the underground cave in the Hokage monument. Ninja, you know what to do." As he put his hands together and said, "Kijibunshin no Jutsu," as 200 copies of him appeared and they began throwing kunais at the enemy while going throughout hand signs and said, "Kage Kunia no Jutsu," as the kunais multiplied to make around 1,000 and they started landing in the middle of the Iwa and Kumo forces and suddenly a yellow flash started to appear. The Tsuchikage screamed, "Everyone run into the village. The Hiraishin will only work while you're around the kunais." The Iwa nins started to run toward the village, leaving a yellow flash passing in the middle of their forces. The Kumo nins ran away from the kunais, falling back while they flashed through hand signs, and as Naruto was appearing in the yellow flashes, lightning started to strike the kunais, making them explode in smoke, and Naruto, who appeared where they were, started to scream as blood started to fall from him where he got struck by lightning. Orochimaru saw Naruto go down and said, "All sound forces move in and kill all civilians and leave ninjas. Leave none alive." The Iwa nins who entered the village saw the villagers running away toward the Hokage monument as well as several ninja, and one said, "Look, they're running scarred. Let's get those cowards," as they all began chasing them. Once Orochimaru made his command, Tenno said, "All Suna forces, surround the village and don't let anyone escape." The Suna nins all started to form a circle around the village, and the Tsuchikage saw Naruto on the ground and smirked as he walked forward pulling a sword out and said, "So, the legacy of the Yondaime. Tell me, how does it feel to soon be joining your father?" as he raised his sword and began to swing down. A shout of "Nu!" echoed across the battlefield, drawing everyone's attention as Tsunade and Jiraiya, who appeared on the edge of the battlefield, began running toward Naruto and the Tsuchikage. As the blade LDF of Naruto cutting his head off the body burst into blood, shocking everyone. Orochimaru said, "Sbloodclone. Where is he?" as he began looking around. Just then a blade LD his back, making him scream. As everyone looked at Orochimaru, everyone saw the grass cutter sticking in his stomach, and behind him stood Tenno. Tenno began to laugh and said, "I told you, Orochimaru, I would get my revenge on you," as he was covered in smoke, revealing Naruto. Orochimaru gasped and said, "How?" Naruto smirked and said, "Suna never joined, you asshole. I took him out 3 days ago before I notified the village of your attack. Now as he yanked the blade out while spinning, slicing the head off of Orochimaru only for when it hit the ground to reveal the body of Kabuto. Naruto growled and said, "Where are you, Orochimaru?" Just then a puff of smoke covered the area to the south of the village, and Manda appeared with Orochimaru on his head. Jiraiya and Tsunade ran over to Naruto, and the Raikage said, "So you played us for a fool, huh boy?" Naruto smirked and said, "Not yet," as he threw a kunai at a tree with an exploding tag on it. The Tsuchikage started to run toward Naruto to attack him when the tag exploded. Naruto quickly grabbed both Tsunade and Jiraiya and disappeared in a yellow flash as an explosion rocked all of Konoha. As a fireball went up into the sky, the three appeared behind the enemy forces only for Manda to burst out of the ground in front of them and dive at the three. Naruto looked and frowned as he saw around 500 enemy ninjas still alive after the explosion and thought, I was hoping to take out more with the explosion. Let's see, I still got those traps, but it looks like only most of the Chunins were ked. The Junins won't fall for them, but the Genins might," as he sent a mental command to his Kijibunshins just as Manda dobe at them. The Suna shinobis who were around the village all went up in smoke, revealing Naruto's Kijibunshins, and they all began flashing through hand signs and said, "Futen, Kamaitaki," as a wind picked up the bamboo spikes, launching them toward the nins that were coming away from the flaming remains of Konoha and those who had stayed back. Several screams of, "Look out," made everyone start doing earth jutsu or replacing themselves, getting out of the flying death spikes heading toward them. As this was happening, Naruto was coughing up blood, having been hit in the chest by Manda tail as Jiraiya and Tsunade summoned their respective bosses. Gambunta looked around and said, "I thought you said I wouldn't get any actions, kid," as he pulled out his dagger. Naruto coughed a little and said, "Don't blame me, the pervert showed up along with Granny here and forced me to spring my trap early," as he stood up only to be sent flying by a boulder that hit him. Naruto slowly started to get up only to get kicked in the ribs by the Tsuchikage, who chuckled and said, "You're not so tough, kid. You should know better than to try and stand up to a cage." Naruto glared at him and said, "You should also know not to believe everything you see," as he exploded, sending the Tsuchikage flying only for him to hit a tree and turn into mud. Jiraiya frowned as he looked around and thought, where the hell is the kid at? I see H has taken out around half of the entire enemy forces with those two traps, and Orochimaru is tougher than I thought he would be, and Tsunade and I don't seem to be winning this, plus there are two cages still here. What was he thinking? The Raikage, who had been Kinkage quickly began hand signs and said, "Raiten, Gigastorm," as the sky darkened with the smoke and suddenly hundreds of lightning bolts hit the ground, killing several of the Iwa, Sound, and Kumo nins along with nearly all the Kagebunshin. As he landed, a cold voice said, "That was impressive, but not as impressive as this. Amaterasu," as black flames consumed him as he screamed before he fell to the ground. Everyone turned and Naruto appeared in front of the body of the Raikage and saw two men with black cloaks and red clouds on, and Naruto said, "I know that voice. What are you doing here, Itachi?" Itachi turned and looked at the battlefield and saw Orochimaru and said, "My reasons for being here are my own. Come kiss him, leader wants Orochimaru head and his ring." The man next to Itachi pulled out his sword and said, "About time," as they both ran toward Manda. Orochimaru thought, what is Atsuki doing here? Jiraiya jumped off of the head of Gambunta as an Iwa nin launched several earth spikes at the boss Toad. Tsunade jumped high into the air and grabbed her leg and came down, causing the ground to break apart as she grabbed a slab of earth and threw it toward a large group of ninjas. Naruto landed beside her and said, "Listen, get Jiraiya and fall back. If you don't, you will in the final trap." Tsunade said, "Not without you." Naruto said a kunai in the end of another nin and said, "But I am not here right now. Everyone here are Kagebunshins." Tsunade frowned and asked, "Then where are you?" Naruto slammed a Rasengan in the stomach of a sound nin and said, "Look to the north." Tsunade punched a nin in the face, breaking his N, and quickly glanced to the north and paled. There, coming from the north, was the one-tailed demon Shukaku, and it appeared as if he was attacking something on the ground. Jiraiya landed beside both of them, doing a swamp of the underworld, trapping Manda as Gambunta espered his dagger in the head of Manda. Jiraiya said, "I hope you got a plan, Gaki, because I am starting to tire out." Tsunade said, "Come Jiraiya, we got to go now," as she started to run to the south. Jiraiya said, "Wait, where are you going, Tsunade?" as he looked at her and Naruto in confusion. Naruto grabbed the end of another nin and said, "Go Ero-sanin, if you don't I won't be able to spring the final trap." Jiraiya said, "This isn't a game, kid, and I am not leaving you behind." Naruto screamed, "Boss Toad, take the pervert and granny and get out of here now. Please, before it's too late," as he charged another group of Iwa nins. Gambunta frowned and was about to say something when Tsunade landed on his head and said, "Listen, Gaki's not here, H is fighting the demon to the north. Let's get out of here and trust him." Gambunta looked to the north and shot his tongue out and grabbed Jiraiya with it before jumping into the air away from the battlefield. Itachi and Kisame were forcing Orochimaru toward the village while he tried to defend himself with one arm, having lost the other already. Orochimaru asked, "What are you doing here, Itachi?" Itachi said, "Your actions have already destroyed the QB Orochimaru, and Leader Sama is not happy. He sent us here to KU and reclaim your ring." Orochimaru jumped back and spat out some blood as he tried to defend himself, as he tried to stop the blood flow from his missing stump of an arm. As he opened his mouth, snakes shot out at Itachi and Kisame, who both burst into water. Before Orochimaru had time to react, he felt pain through his back as Kisame's sword shaved his back. Just then Itachi appeared in front of him, and the next thing he knew, his world went red. Orochimaru found himself tied to a cross, and Itachi appeared in front of him and said, "Now Orochimaru, it's time for you to pay for what you have done. For the next 72 hours you shall experience S over and over again as your body ages." As he espered Orochimaru in the stomach, as a gray hair appeared on Orochimaru's head. This continued for hours, and Itachi stopped and said, 71 hours 59 minutes and 59 seconds to go. Orochimaru screamed as his heart stopped. Back out of the genjutsu, Itachi grabbed his sword and removed Orochimaru's head from his body, and then grabbed the ring on his finger before using his Amaterasu on his body to destroy it. Kisame asked, "What about Shukaku?" as he saw the massive sand demon heading toward the battlefield. Itachi said, "Not our worry for now, let's go," as they both jumped away. The Tsuchikage looked around the battlefield and saw that nearly all the Kagebunshin were S along with most of the combined forces of Iwa, Kumo and Sound. Orochimaru and the Raikage were both S. The real Naruto was nowhere to be seen and the Sanins were retreating. He frowned and thought, how did this battle get turned around so much, only to hear the sound of breaking trees coming from behind. He turned and paled as he saw the demon coming toward them and screamed, "Retreat," as he started to run away. Just then the river that had been dammed up with trees in it exploded in flames, cutting off their retreat path, and the Tsuchikage thought, we're all going to S. Naruto smirked as he appeared beside the Tsuchikage and said, "So, how's it going, asshole?" The Tsuchikage threw a kunai at Naruto as Naruto went up in smoke. Just then several Iwa, Kumo, and Sound Nins jumped over the fire running toward the Tsuchikage, and they turned and threw exploding tags at the demon and said, "You can't kill us, demon, we will stop you," as they continue to run toward Konoha. The Tsuchikage paled, realizing exactly what happened, and started to run after the Nins who just attacked the demon and espered one as it went up in smoke. Shukaku screamed, "I will kill you all for this. You dare attack me and ruin my revenge," as a wall of sand came up towering as tall as Shukaku and fell toward the village of Konoha, burying everyone and everything in it. Naruto appeared on the Hokage monument looking for any enemy ninjas as the demon marched toward the village, who only had roofs sticking out of the sand. He was holding his ribs as blood was coming out of his mouth and he had cuts across his entire body and thought, I can't believe it worked. All of them are S, but now what do I have to do with him? I have almost no chakra left, several ribs broken, who knows what else since I. As his vision blurred and he started to fall off the Yondime's head toward the village below as he was passed out. In Wave Country, Kurenai held herself and thought, "Please come back to me, Naruto. I love you." It had been over a week since they had left Konoha. The villagers and ninja of Konoha had all returned except for the Anbu and Naruto. Even the Chunins had returned, all of them. Apparently Jiraiya of the Sanins had ran into the group and ordered them to go to the meeting place instead of heading for Suna. After they arrived, no one else had shown up. Kurenai now stood on the Great Naruto Bridge looking toward the mainland with her arms held around her. She had been doing this every day since they arrived. She tensed a moment as she felt a chakra signature arrive, and she turned and saw Sakura standing there, and she said, "Don't worry, H is still alive." Kurenai looked back to the mainland and asked, "How can you be so sure?" Sakura said, "Because you're still alive. If he S you S, just like if you S he S." Kurenai blinked and asked, "What are you talking about?" Sakura bit her hand and walked over and rubbed the blood across Kurenai N and took off her headband and used the polished mirror part and showed Kurenai her N, where a strange spiral seal appeared, and Sakura said, "It's one of the other things the Uzumaki blood carries. It makes it where lovers are never separated, even in death. It links your lives together so that if one S, the other does not have to worry about living without them." Kurenai was shocked and asked, "How?" Anko, who came walking up, said, "Remember the first kiss you and the Gaki shared? The moment you did, you both passed out. Aruka and I were worried until the Hokage came and told us what it was. He ordered us not to tell you so you could fall in love and admit your feelings." Kurenai let a tear fall as she realized Naruto still was alive and asked, "If H is still alive, why hasn't he shown up?" A voice that came from the fog between the mainland and the island of Waves said, "Have you ever fought an army and a demon and tried to walk like nothing happened?" Making all three women turn and look as several figures could be seen walking out of the fog. In front was a Sunid with Jiraiya beside her. Behind them was a black-haired woman holding a pig. Next to her was a few Anbu with around 200 more behind them, and in the middle of it all was Naruto, who was only in a pair of pants. Kurenai gasped as she looked at him and saw scars across his body as she ran forward and jumped when she got close enough as he caught her and swung her around before locking lips with her as he set her feet on the ground as he pulled her close. Several cat calls and wolf whistles echoed, and Jiraiya smirked as he pulled out his notepad only for Sunid to grab it and throw it over the edge of the bridge, shooting Jiraiya a glare. After several moments the couple broke the kiss and Naruto said, "Miss me?" Kurenai slapped him across the face and then pulled him into a hug as she broke into a set of tears and said in a sobbing voice, "Why did you lie to me? Naruto sighed as he rested his chin on her head and said, so you would not try and stop me? Kurenai said, but why? Naruto said, because I promised I would do anything to protect you and that's what I did. Anko asked, so what happened? Naruto sighed and said, well. And over the next hour he told about him ambushing Tsunanins and creating a Kijbunshin army of them, and then about the traps he had set up and about Itachi coming and killing not only the Reikage but Orochimaru. He told about how Jiraiya and Tsunade showed up forcing him to spring his trap early and about attacking Shukaku with clones pretending to be Sound, Iwa, and Kumo nins. He then told about how Shukaku came and buried everyone alive that had survived as well as the village itself. He then told how he was bleeding on the Hokage monument and out of chakra as he passed out and fell, and that was the last thing I remembered was falling. By now the clan heads, Sandaime and the elders arrived hearing it all, and Chum asked, so what happened after that? Tsunade said, well, flashback. As Naruto was falling toward the ground, a toad appeared and caught him in its mouth before landing on the sand and jumping away. At that moment both summon bosses for the frogs and slugs reappeared, drawing Shukaku's attention. Tsunade said, your time is up, Shukaku, as Katsuyu spat acid at the raccoon demon. Shukaku took the attack and started to regrow the damage as it laughed and said, yes, I shall have your blood. Jiraiya said, oi, give me some oil. As Gambunta spat out oil as Jiraiya used a Kaiten jutsu to set it on fire, launching it at the raccoon, who screamed out in fury. Gambunta then pulled out his dagger and jumped toward the sand demon, who had mouths begin appearing on its body as they all sucked in air. At that moment Katsuyu sent another acid shot at the demon, blowing a hole in its enlarged stomach, forcing the air it had inhaled to explode outward, leaving a huge hole that started to reform just as Gambunta dagger cut into Shukaku's arm, cutting it off. Shukaku screamed, I will kill you for this. I shall enjoy your blood greatly, as its wounds and arm started to heal. Just then 6 pillars of wood formed around Shukaku and it screamed out, what is the meaning of this? Who is stealing my power? At the edge of the new desert a single Anbu had his hands on the ground as around 200 Anbu appeared, all going through hand signs, launching fire jutsu at the demon. Jiraiya said, oi, give me oil again, as Gambunta started to spit out oil again and Jiraiya set it on fire. Katsuyu started shooting several acid attacks on the demon that was screaming out in pain. At this point the wooden pillars started to break apart as the Anbu who was creating them was getting tired. Jiraiya frowned and said, it's not working, H is getting free, as Gambunta kept the flamethrower coming out of his mouth. Looking around, Jiraiya saw Tsunade was beside Naruto healing him, and Naruto was awake looking at the attack, and he said in a tired and weak voice, Dad's head. Tsunade looked confused and said, don't talk, you're too weak. Naruto shook his head and said, no, listen. Destroy the Yondaime's head. It will stop Shukaku. Tsunade asked, what do you mean? Naruto took a gasp of breath as pain shot through him and said, destroy the Yondaime's head on the monument. Trust me, please, as he passed out. Tsunade turned and yelled, Jiraiya, the kid said to destroy the Yondaime's head to stop Shukaku. Jiraiya looked confused and said, you heard her, boss. The Gaki's plans have worked until now, so might as well try it. Gambunta nods and stops spitting fire as he jumps toward the Hokage monument and espede his sword into the Yondaime's head. At that moment water blasted out of the crack, shooting toward Gambunta, causing him to go up in smoke and Jiraiya to jump off. The force of the attack hit Shukaku's center of its chest as the pillars of wood started to fall. The water kept hitting the demon as it screamed, "No," as its body began to turn into mud and shrink in size. The sand at its feet also getting wet. Everyone jumped away as the pillars finished falling apart and watched as the demon kept trying to pull itself back together, but it kept falling apart as the water soaked the sand. As everyone watched over the next hour as water continued to soak the sand, the demon Shukaku ceased to keep pulling itself together, and everyone looked and saw the body of Gaara, and Jiraiya walked over to the body and looked at it and said, I see. Tsunade asked, what happened to it, Jiraiya? Jiraiya grabbed Gaara's body and pulled it away from the water it was in and began doing hand seals and set the body on fire, turning it to ash. Once the body was gone, Jiraiya turned and saw everyone looking at him and said, as most of you should know from when Kyuubi was sealed, the demon's body was sealed as well into the body of the host. It provides an anchor point for the spirit to stay in this world. When Shukaku was weakened from our combined attacks, he was having to restore his body, but being a sand demon he is vulnerable to fire or water. Fire turns it to glass and water condenses it down, making it unable to move without a lot of chakra. Every time Shukaku was trying to repair itself, it was drawing more and more chakra to do so. Now what no one realizes when you seal a living creature in another, yes, the chakra the beast has at the time goes into the new body, but without a living body its chakra reserves are not endless. Without Gaara death during the first attack, his normal body could not produce chakra any longer and Shukaku was forced to keep using his own chakra. As time goes on, Shukaku was getting weaker and weaker since the body we just fought was not a real body, so when the water made it harder to repair itself. Tsunade said, "It's of chakra exhaustion." Jiraiya nods and Anbu asked, "Okay, I get that, but how is it the water is coming out of the Yondaim's nose?" Everyone blinked and looked and started to laugh, and Naruto, who had awakened, said, "Because the river I dammed up was redirected to fill the underground escape tunnels. When I made the village explode, I basically heated the water that had gathered inside and." Jiraiya said, "You made the mountain into a water heater and the only way it could escape was the hole in the Yondaim's head." Naruto nods and Tsunade made her hands glow and touched Naruto's head as he passed out. End flashback. Tsunade said, "And that was about it." Everyone was amazed and the Sandaime asked, "So why did it take you all so long to get back here then?" Naruto looked sheepish and said, "Well, The Sandaime asked, "What?" Naruto said, "The Firelord came by to give a mission as we were getting ready to leave and he The Sandaime said, "Yes, spill it already Godime." Naruto looked at Tsunade and Jiraiya said, "He made us go back to his place so I could autograph his collection of Ica Paradise." Everyone face-faulted and Tsunade said, "While we were there all my debt collectors showed up and." Jiraiya said, "I was forced to pay off her debts." Tsunade said, "And the Gaki needed a few extra days to discuss the plans to restore Konoha." Naruto said, "Oh, and guess what? Konoha is being rebuilt as we speak. Apparently the mission the Firelord was wanting was to renovate the village since he heard about our first attack and hired several contractors, go figure. The village will be restored in 3 months." Everyone sweet dropped and Kakashi asked, "How did everything so conveniently happening?" Naruto said, "Well, unlike Granny here, I'm very lucky, aren't I dear?" as he pulled Kurenai into a kiss. Kurenai smiled after she broke the kiss and said, "At least you will be in a little bit," as she grabbed his hand and started to drag him away while swaying her hips. Asuma shook his head and said, "Lucky." Naruto smirked and said, "You know it. Hey old man, I'm taking a vacation for the next few days." Kurenai said, "Years," as she shushined both away as everyone laughed. The third smiled and thought as he watched everyone disperse and go find a place to stay, and so the wall of fire lives on. What the future brings is still a mystery, but Konoha will live on. Just then a shout of, "Oh yes, Narutokun, harder, harder, faster, oh god yes," echoed across Island of Waves. Guy looked at Kakashi and shouted, "Naruto-kun's flames of youth burn brightly, don't you agree Kakashi?" Kakashi looked up from his book and said, "I don't know Guy, I think H is getting lost on the road of life." As he flipped a page as Guy said, "Damn you cool hippitude. X." That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.